Good evening, you're very welcome to the Daily Rundown with me, Fiona Fox. Now, this is the show that chats about all the big news stories of the day. But before we do that, let me introduce to you my guests for the evening. Manchester comedian Stephen Armstrong is here. Hello, Stephen.
Hello. Melting as we sit here, yes.
You know what, it's not as bad as it was yesterday, I have to say.
Well, yes, and it'll be worse tomorrow.
Are we going to go down this road, though, of, when we just finally get a bit of summer, we're all raining all over it?
I think that's what it is. We seem to have hit a bit of summer, and that's it. We've decided to stop.
Well, listen, don't worry about it, because it's all breaking anyway this afternoon or something, so we'll be back to being freezing tomorrow for the rest. Welcome, Stephen.
Cool.
And he hasn't been in for a while. The journalist, Andrew Greaves, is here as well. Hi, Andrew.
Are we well? Are you well?
Oh, yeah, well, we're good. We're all good here. How are you?
As warm as Stephen. I'm absolutely... The choice for a wool jacket, I think, is just ridiculous today. I've got to learn my lesson.
Brits and Irish, what are we like? We sit around moaning until we get a bit of sun. As soon as we got... What do you think the optimum is, though? Is it when it just kind of...
Autumn for me.
Oh, so you're talking about under 20? I was going to say 25. It is the summer. We should be allowed to have a summer. Do you not think so?
A breeze, though. That's what I need. A constant breeze.
Just get a bit of a draft going. That's what you want. It's those days where you just can't get a draft going that we're struggling with, isn't it?
That's the one.
All right, guys, but I hope it isn't too much of a struggle under the hot studio lights for you. Don't forget, you guys at home can get involved with the programme as well. You can tweet us at The Daily Rundown. Go on, you might as well. You're watching anyway. Let's go to our first story of the evening. People have until 11:59 tonight to register to be able to vote in the EU referendum. The Electoral Commission said that 1.65 million people have registered to vote since the campaign began last month, but millions more have yet to sign up. We have 16 days before the UK votes, and Vote Leave says that dozens of foreign criminals have been allowed to remain in the UK because of EU laws. Remain campaigners say UK firms face £34.4 billion of trade tariffs outside the single market, and Hitachi will rethink UK investment in the event of a Brexit. Part of me kind of feels like I'm glad it's almost over, I won't lie. There's a part of me that feels that. What do you two gentlemen think of the voting? It's a surprise that people still haven't signed up. Such an important subject.
Yeah, I think people are just tired of it. I mean, I think
so?
I mean, we cover it every single day, and we talk about it every single day. And even for somebody who loves politics, I'm just getting a little bit.
You're sick of it?
Yeah, you get weary, don't you? It's just kind of like, the problem we've got is we've got a long campaign then a short campaign. I'm a bit surprised that there's still millions of people still not signed up to vote, because I think everyone should exercise their democratic right to vote. And I have a simple rule in my circle of friends: if you've not voted, you're not entitled to an opinion on absolutely anything. I'm one of them real stickers. We were talking about me getting really grumpy.
I hate people who throw that at you. I agree with you, though.
Yeah.
I will say that, but you just know you need to have yourself covered if you're going to try and in any way express any kind of opinion, don't you? These days, like if someone's going to say, "Well, have you voted?" You've no argument.
Well, that's it. I think we've like yourselves. We do talk about it every day. I am amazed that every day there seems to be the same people going, do you know what? There's just not enough information out there. And
it is a comment that we hear
it's a lack. I think it's the lack. It's the massive amount of lack of information. It's everybody kind of going, this could happen or it couldn't happen. It just seems it's amazing. I saw a news article today that suggested that some of the reasons why people aren't registered to vote is they just assumed that their dads would have done it, or that previously they would have registered, the head of the household would have registered this. To be honest with you, I think the idea of the head of the household is a pretty outdated one nowadays.
That could happen, actually.
That's it. Yeah. It's I think it went the way of the person who wears the trousers in the relationship. That's another phrase that we don't hear a lot now. But we do have a lot of information now. It is worrying that 7 million people haven't registered to vote.
Do you feel like, I think if they profile them, it's mostly young people as well, which is the most worrying, obviously, because it's do you think this has been a sort of a polarising referendum anyway, age-wise, or?
I think there is a split. I think I think young people who perhaps see themselves as more European or perhaps more inclined to vote to remain. I think perhaps the older generation are perhaps more they remember a kind of a Europe before the EU, before the EC, ECC, whatever it was called. So I do think there's a bit of a split there. I think older people. I mean, my grandma's got a postal vote, and you know, she's somebody who engages. Somebody like my sister, you know, I'll ring her up tomorrow and say, "Are you registered to vote?" And it could go either way. And it could be 50-50 whether she's registered or she's not registered, because she'll think maybe her landlord's registered to vote or something ridiculous like that. So I think there's a lack of education. There's an interesting thing on 5 Live about two people, one from each side. Obviously, the BBC's got to be impartial. One from Remain, one from to stay in. Young people, 118, 122, something like that. And they were saying it's a lack of education. I think there is a massive lack of education around politics and around this issue for young people. If you're 18, you know, I knew when I was a weird kid, so as soon as I got to 18, I wanted to vote. I could walk into a classroom, and I'm doing a talk in Yorkshire tomorrow, of 18-year-olds. I could walk in and say, who's engaged, who's actually registered to vote, and, you know, I don't want to kind of, you know, predict it, but I think the majority will say, I'm not really that interested.
I mean, what are they interested in? Because it feels like we're at an age where they've never had more access to all that information. You know, I kind of feel like I was very naive 18-year-old. I was still very much a school kid in my priorities, and you know what I mean? But I feel like kids these days, when you see them like that, for example, if they're interviewed or if you're just watching their YouTube channels, because they all have a YouTube channel, they have access to the information. They seem informed. Are they more interested in their own media, and is that what it is?
I don't know.
Self-indulgent or something?
I think it's too simple to sort of say that we live in the period of the X Factor generation, all this kind of thing. I think it's that they don't see it as something. They don't see it as something that affects them on a daily basis. They don't see the you know, like. A lot of the discussions seems to be about kind of, is it going to be this way, is it going to be that way? A lot of people don't really know, and I think that it is going to be, until it really affects you, it's not something that people will engage with. You know, it's kind of, you know, the things that people maybe hadn't thought of. I heard the other day, somebody sort of turned to the other and they were discussing the great in-depth, great details of this debate, and somebody just said, yeah, but if we leave the EU, does that mean we'll go back to only being able to get papers in Spain the day after you get them in the UK? And it's like, if we're 3 weeks away and that is the sort of questions that people are dealing with, we haven't given enough. We've maybe not given the serious information. If people have gone, yeah, all that stuff about economy and immigration, all that's I don't confuse that. But what I want to know is, am I going to be able to know who's been kicked out of the Big Brother house, or who signed for Chelsea, or who signed, you know, am I going to know what's going on with Kim Kardashian the day it happens, or am I going to be a day behind everybody? It seems to be that, yeah, exactly. These are the topics. It suggests then that we're not giving that education out there. If these are the sort of debates, and the suggestion that 7 million people are not even registered to vote in something that, whether you think you know what's going to happen or you don't know what's going to happen, whether you want to stay or you want to leave, it's a decision that's going to affect the rest of time. It's not going to be just like 5 years. This is a decision about whether we stay with a group of people or sort of, you know, separate. You know, if it was about, if we form it as a relationship, everybody would be interested in that. If you were just like, yeah, I don't really, yeah, my mum and dad, in 3 weeks' time, there's a big decision about whether my mum and dad are going to stay together or whether they're going to separate. But do you know what? I can't really be bothered getting involved. You're like, no, that wouldn't happen. You'd be like, no.
The old argument's over which parent would take me to Centre Park.
That's it. Am I going to get 2 presents? That's it.
Yeah. That perk though, isn't it? It has been a very sound, bitey kind of campaign though, hasn't it, the whole way through? The
problem is though, the sound bites are middle-aged, middle-class, white men from public school backgrounds, and that is the whole problem we've got with politics in general. I'm a Labour member. Jeremy Corbyn is not my choice of leader, but he did something. You know, he somehow managed to find the 250,000 true far left socialists that this country has, and he galvanised them into such a unit. He's kind of like the Bernie Sanders effect. I know we're going to talk about the US presidential election. It needs something other than a line of David Cameron, Tim Farron, as much as I like Tim Farron, Harriet Harman, George Osborne on one side, Farage, Chris Grayling, IDS, Boris, Michael Gove on the other side. Kids will look at that and go, they're talking about tariffs, they're talking about free markets. Like you said, Stephen, it's not stuff they're interested in. We've got to get them to think about the fact that actually like you say, it's the next 25 years. There's not going to be another question. We can't just go, well, that didn't quite work out, let's ask again in 5 years.
Yeah.
Because it's a once in a generation, like the Scottish India referendum was.
Yeah.
And that's the appalling thing, really.
It's not, you know, oh, we'll do it again in whatever, a couple of years, whatever. I think my favourite, obviously there's some brilliant memes and that kind of thing going around, isn't there? But I think my favourite that I saw going around was we all have that one friend who everyone's out having a good time, having a drink, we're all in the pub, and someone goes, oh, let's go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then you go somewhere else and they go, you can't get into the other place, or it's too full, or whatever. And they go, oh, let's go back to the other place, can't get back in there. You just go, what was the plan? I don't know, I just wanted to leave.
Yeah.
And they're relating to the whole Brexit thing, which I thought was quite funny.
Yeah.
But I think you're right, the relatability, I think, to young people, it just isn't there. Do you think what about the, because we've talked, I think, on the show recently a lot about, you know, general kind of feeling of disillusionment maybe with a lot of different events over the last while, junior doctors, tax credits, all the different cuts. Do you think there's a general apathy or disillusionment across the public that has affected the EU referendum as well? It's had a knock-on effect from the public maybe?
I think there's a general malaise. I don't think it's apathy. I think it's been built up over years, as you say. I think it's people not talking the same language as us. You know, I think that's the thing. You know, you see, you know, I think it's quite a noble profession to be an MP and, you know, to hold high office and things like that. But like I say, I've always been a bit weird like that in terms of thinking that way. You know, we don't teach politics in school. We don't teach, you know, we don't teach kind of citizenship or anything. Like we do teach citizenship, but it's not complete enough for people to actually get to 18 and make a decision. This party does this, that's their ideals. This party does that, that's their ideals. This is how you get involved in changing it. And
it's very much picking a side, and it's just, I mean, you can't even tackle it just as a subject, can you? So it's quite hard. Thanks very much for that, gentlemen. Remember, everybody, you have until 11:59 to register to vote for that EU referendum. We'll go for our first break of the evening. Don't go anywhere. We've lots more news and a very special musical guest coming up as well. See you soon.